Hi everyone, I'm Catherine, the artist behind Bigelow Fine Arts. How is your coloring going? Are you following along? Let me know below how it is going. I really want to know. I'll be moving around a lot more in this video as I try to tackle all of the remaining sea life. My pencils are ready. Come along and join me and let's color this in together. I'm going to be working on the schools of little fish, and in hindsight I now realize I went too dark using the warm gray 5. I'll be putting in a really dark background, and in order to not lose the fish, I'd suggest going with something much lighter. I think I might even have to go back in and either go over them in white to lighten them up, or erase them lightly and come in with a cold gray 2 or something. For this part at least, I worked up the little fish in the warm gray 5, just with a light layer. All the little fish, and there are a lot of them all over. I also gave some of the sea life a little hint of light phthalo blue, but I really don't feel it is needed. Moving on, there is a small and hard to see fish hiding near the brain coral. I went with the cadmium yellow over the body, leaving the stripes alone. I went with black on the stripes, like an angelfish. I had to give it several layers to get the black nice and dark. I really wanted the stripes to show up. I hit up these larger fish again with the warm gray 5, and again, knowing how dark the background is and how well they fade into it, I'd go with something much lighter. I initially hit up the fish in the cave with the gray 5, but opted for something else since they would definitely fade into the cave background. I could already see it happening. So I gave them a light layer with the scarlet, then blended that out with the ivory to make sure they weren't too dark. I also hit the other fish in the cave with some ivory. Don't worry about the scarlet fish, I'll come back to them later and fix them up. Behind the turtle there is a little bit of coral I missed earlier, so I'm going to get that with the cobalt green and a little green on the top, kind of like the finger coral. I put in a little blue greenish at the bottom and added another layer with the green to finish it off. Now I can tackle the turtle. I give it a light layer of green all over. I block in the shadows with the sepia. These are mostly along the base of the shell and on the flippers. I add in another layer of green, then I use the yellow lemon to brighten up the green, especially in the highlight areas. I'm going to work on this eel next. I begin with a layer of the scarlet. I'm not sure what I'm thinking here. Aren't eels normally dark in color? Well, this one is now red. I came in with the orange and hit up a tiny spot of coral hiding under the eel. I then gave the fish a light layer of scarlet too. Now I'm really not sure what I'm thinking. I put on a layer of orange, then a layer of yellow, followed by a layer of ivory. I'm lost on this fish. I think I ended up erasing it and lightening it up later. I must have, because this fish is crazy looking. Especially since I came back in with the scarlet and hit it up once more. Back to the eel, and I put a light layer of orange over the eel. Then I came in with some sepia to add in some shadows. I toned down the color with the layer of ivory, but this is one bizarre eel. I wouldn't blame you for picking another color. I'm using the warm gray 5 on the bits of rock sticking out from the flames. I'm actually wondering now if they shouldn't be red from the heat of the flames. Oh well. I used the sepia to add in some shadows. Although that close to the flames, wouldn't the shadows have harsh lines? Moving on. Another manta ray that I will begin with a layer of gray 5 over the whole body. Again, I do want to be careful not to go too dark on the bottom of the wing because they are typically lighter in color. I use the sepia to add in some shadows. Since I now have the black as part of my palette, I'm going to use that to give the ray some nice dark shadows, and while I'm at it, I will touch up some of the other rays in the shark. There is a school of larger fish up in the corner that look like the angelfish but without the stripes. So I'm going to make them yellow and put 2 black stripes on all of them. After I fill in the yellow, including the one down in the bottom clump of coral, I am now going to come in with my black and create 2 black triangles, one on the top and one on the bottom to give it its stripes. The little shell gets a layer of yellow, then a light layer of the pink, followed by a layer of ivory. I fill in more of the large school of fish taking over the page. Again, in hindsight, I would make them lighter. The jellyfish at the top and barely on screen is going to be pink just like the other jellyfish, although I guess this could be a strange octopus. I give it a light layer of pink all over. I had a little trouble following some of the tendrils and colored in a portion of the sky. I erased it, but given how small the area is, no one would have noticed, even me after I filled everything in. I switched out for the magenta to add in some shadows along the bottom of the head and the bottom of the tendrils. I also put in a shadow under both sets of ruffles. I add another layer of pink, then darken up the shadows with more magenta and some sepia. I'm working on another one of these larger fish. The first one came out more red, so I am trying something less red. I'm coming in with a light layer of orange over the whole body, then adding a layer of yellow over top. I give it another layer of orange, keeping it more to the darker areas. Then another layer of yellow before coming in with the magenta to add in a shadow. Magenta and orange work really well together. I highly recommend them. I use a little more orange to blend out the edge of the magenta, and I now have a fish that is less red. I think I like this one better. There is another one up near the top of the big meteor, so I will give it another go. I'm coming in again with a light layer of the orange over the whole fish. I bring in a layer of yellow to keep the orange light. This lets me fill in the paper and get good pigment coverage without having to rely on the orange, which would be too dark on its own. I add more orange, but keep it more to the areas I want darker, like the bottom of the fish and along the base of the dorsal fin. Another layer with yellow, then I bring in the magenta to really get those shadows in place. I touch up the other fish with the magenta, but I feel like that one might be a lost cause. It is really dark. I add in more orange and yellow to finish off the fish. I'm coming back to the two fish in the cave, erasing them back a little and having another go at it. I give them a light layer of orange, then follow that up with the yellow. Some magenta in the areas where I think there would be shadows, then the orange followed by another layer of yellow. I touch up the shadows on the fish with sepia, then continue going around, touching up other shadows with more sepia. And even going further out to touch up the shadows and add in a touch more green where I felt it needed more. I'm going to work up the flames, but I'm not going to finish it today. I feel it would be better to finish it off after I get the background in place so I know how dark to go on the flames. I might want to make them really bright against a dark background, and the best time to figure that out would be right after the background is in place. But this is a good starting point, and if you opt for no background, just add more layers to build up the color. I'm beginning with the ivory along the front. I want the front to be very light, so I'm blocking that in right away. From there, I will bring in the orange and add a light layer from the tips of the flames inwards. I am following the direction of the flames with my pencil strokes so they match a little. This way, if I don't get smooth coverage, it doesn't look out of place. I put two really light layers on before bringing in the scarlet. I also begin working my way up from the tips of the flames and keeping my layers light. I don't bring the scarlet in as much as I brought in the orange. I am now going to add more layers, beginning with the ivory, then more orange, and finally more scarlet, still keeping a light hand. That covers it for today. For the rest of the week, I'll be working up the planetary bodies, the backgrounds, and doing a few finishing touches, especially on the flames, so stay tuned to see how it all comes together. I hope you've been following along. Please let me know below. I'd love to know how all your turtle and jellyfish turned out. I'm on MeWe and would love to build a coloring community there with everyone to share art, talk art, and discuss supplies. I have my social media links below. Find me on Twitter, Instagram, MeWe, and Patreon. Patreon has a short write-up as well as a list of all the palettes I'm using and a list of timestamps. It's available for everyone. If you have any questions or page requests, please leave them below or reach out to me on social media. I put in a list of chapter breaks in the show notes as well as a list of equipment I like to use. If you use any of my affiliate links, it really helps me out without costing you a thing. I want to thank you all so much for coming along and joining in with me on this coloring journey. I appreciate all my subscribers and look forward to more of you joining in and coloring along with me. Please like, share, and subscribe to help that happen. Until next time, happy coloring.